Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for your patience. Let's get this started. So I have it here. Let me share the screen to start so I can get into my meditative trance that looks kind of weird when filmed. All right. So a very interesting chart. Excuse me. Just look at the shape, These charts are always so interesting when there's just so much in one area. So the first thing I noticed, okay, let me drink some water. Let's not keep this going, this whole reading. Also, sometimes I take pauses, like I'll just like not say anything for a while. Usually I'm just like closing my eyes, meditating, flowing, like things kind of come to me, I guess you could say. So just just so you know. So anyways, you lack, so elementally, let's see. You got the air, you got the earth. A lot in this Capricorn Aquarius energy. Ooh, look at you. And also I need to actually kill this for a second. I need to see a note. Okay, I got you. So relationship, love life, music. Okay. So this stands out right away. Actually, never mind. I thought 23 and 23 was 23 and 3. It's still interesting. Um, but I saw that incorrectly. But this is the part of fortune. But yeah, so lack of water, um, lack of fire. So everything is earth and air, and mostly Capricorn and Aquarius. Ugh, Well, actually, yeah. And there's the Libra Mars with the North Node in Libra. So from a karmic perspective, you asked about relationships. Well, that's what I would talked about anyways. I hope I'm not losing my voice again. But your south node's in Aries, right? With Saturn. North node is in Libra with Mars. And the south node, it represents the been there, done that karmically. And the north node represents the mountain we are trying to metaphorically climb, right? If I'm losing my voice, I'm gonna have to use that day. Let me drink some hot tea. Hold on. So, this axis, right, of Aries, and you have squares from Mercury and Venus. Interesting. So there's a lot of karma in this chart. So a big lesson for you. So from a past life perspective, right? Your tendency is to be very like warrior, assertive, fiery, independent, the kind of person that, with Saturn is, you know, really like a boss. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like it's like a boss energy, right? And let me actually just like verify. I always want to be sure, even though I probably did already. Oh, I just want to always be sure about birth time. Okay, but yeah, so trying to not look at any photos. Okay. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, so where are we? Where are we? Yeah, okay, so it is 97. Just making sure. Um, okay, everything's perfect. Okay, let's just go back to the share screen. So, I'm gonna text you doing it now. Okay. So yeah, South Node, in Aries, North Node in Libra. You're really here to learn, and it's square Venus. So you're really, really here to learn about relationships in this lifetime. But a lot of the square with Venus in the nodes, right, which is referred to by me in I don't know, I taught myself astrology, so I don't know who else calls it that, but it's a skip step, right? Um, and when Venus is square the nodes, right, it is a lot of unresolved material around how someone relates to themselves, like self-love, and then also how they project that outwardly in their relationships. So it can be someone who's like, super isolated or like excessively social or even like codependent, right? Where they like lose their identity. And your South Node is in Aries and it's with Saturn, so it makes me think that it's an individual a karmic tendency, at least with the past lives we're dealing with, of being very much kind of in like in the kind of material world, not necessarily that you weren't that you don't have like a spiritual like past life. It's not that. It's just like what's really being brought up is relational, right? So sometimes there can be like lots of like transference onto like other people, like a lot of projection with this. Like where one might like, and I'll get into the Mercury one, where one might like project unresolved things within themselves onto their partners, right? And yeah, so it can really it can also, I mean, there's so many potentials, right? But a lot of times when I see this, I think that the person on a soul level needs to learn to be alone and to like really, it's really like about self-love and and just being able to see themselves like for who they are. Now, astrology, everything I'm saying to you is based on, this is your chart, your free will of what you've done in your life so far, right? This I'm telling you that I'm reading this the same way as if your parents would have bought you reading from me somehow in time machine when you were 4. It's the same way I'd read it, right? So with a Mercury square, that's all about self-limiting beliefs. Something like on the in like the mental, like a lot. I always think it's like it's kind of like self-limiting beliefs, like overly rigid thinking. Um, something with the mind where it's like the mind that person's mind is getting in their way of seeing things clearly. And sometimes it can be even like, lacking discrimination as to, what's being taken on or what's being seen as truth. So on that point, truth is everything, right? Like your truth really determines, what you deem important to do in your life. So, with this, a lot of interjects, right? Internalized messages that are, like it's someone, usually like someone who's quite self-critical, who has a karmic tendency to be quite self-critical. And, they're here to change that. But it's not easy, and it's a lot of inner work, right? It's a lot of inner work. Um, so there can also be like a level of like internalized guilt, or shame. And even because it's Mercury, it could be like some kind of communication issue, or like, trusting other people's opinions that you shouldn't, and not, like paranoia, or just like anything where the nature of the, like being lied to, and like, some like there's a lot of combinations, right? So in the context of the South Node with Saturn, like I said, it's like kind of boss energy. Um, Aries is a very dominant sign, and Saturn is the planet of restriction, but also of like the patriarch, of the boss. So when I see that, I think, and it's in the fourth house, I'm like, all right, that's interesting. So fourth house is about family, and it'd be in the third house in Placid. So, to me, that's like someone who, that makes more sense to me. And it really makes me think of someone who, because of the conditioning and because of like the limiting beliefs and all those things they just talked about, um, they weren't able to expand their their reality of what is true and what is not true, what's important. Like that's really what ninth house North Node in Placidus, is about, right? It's about expanding that truth. So how do you do that? Well, we'll get into that in a little bit, but just more about this, right? Um, the South Node's what's familiar. So it's familiar to kind of be very independent, but it can be uncomfortable to move towards that, right? And like, I think that like Saturn on the South Node can be someone who's like very, like who maybe felt like they could have been, very powerful, but also very, very responsible, very like, rest, either restricted, or someone that placed restrictions on other people. Um, so, you know, when I think about it, I just, I don't know, I just feel like on some level, it's really about letting go, right? And when you're moving towards Libra, so if you talk about like, if you talk about like if there's any potential of like being controlling, I'm not saying that's what you are, or being controlled, right? Or any kind of conditioning, it's really like about freeing your mind and having the mantra of like, I know nothing, right? Even if you know a lot, I know nothing. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of releasing and healing from the past before one can really move forward. And you learn lots of responsibilities in past lives about authority, about responsibility. Um, but they maybe, yeah, like became too far, right? Like, for example, being really focused on social status, or like being an authority, to the point to where you maybe weren't able to grow spiritually, grow on like a philosophical level. So a lot of times also there's this fear of failure that shows up there, right? Um, and fearing change, like the unknown. But like the real failure at the end of the day is like if you don't try at all, right? So there can just like be this need to like to not run from any like these these you know these self-limiting beliefs and to really and anything related to self-love and really face it, right? um because like it can make it really easy to be very successful like in society's kind of perspective of what success is, but interpersonally it can be difficult, right? Like emotional and spiritual maturity. um And if we're talking about the fourth house, it could be with with family and with like the inner life of the self. And third house, it could be with respect to communication and being kind of more in like the everyday kind of like lower conversation type. I always think like the barber shop, and not so like for you like the idea of traveling, experiencing different cultures, different worldviews, different things like astrology, psychology, like all these different philosophical outlets. If that's somewhere, um, you know, it's something that you're doing, then you're doing a great job. But really, like this conjunction, it kind of makes like it almost like either it's like it's kind of like your old ways of thinking keep you prisoner if in the third house, right? So you're trying to break through old ways of thinking that are linked to um like let's say like a self-limiting belief or some type of shame. There's so many different potentials, right? So and it comes from having like a rigid worldview a lot of the times. In past lives it could have been like a survival technique, but it's no longer needed in this life, right? So you're really forced to kind of work through these issues. Um and really that comes from opening your mind, right? um so it's really about finding this like real like hard work and discipline within yourself, discipline to be very open, right? And when it comes to Libra, because and this is a scary aspect because it does require that real journey into the darkest parts of the soul, right? So a lot of people choose to ignore this work. I know a lot of people who have this and who aren't spiritual at all. So, the fact that you're getting this reading to me is already just like, wow, like that's amazing, right? But so much freedom comes, when you work, like when or if you have worked on these things. And then there's just no limits to what you can achieve, right? Because Saturn is, you do have that boss energy, right? It's just like the more internal stuff. So headed to Libra and Mars, that's interesting. Um, because Mars on like Mars rules it rules your south node, it's on your north node. So it really does speak to this incarnation being like a really like just like it's what this is like something you've been working on for many lifetimes, right? At least the last one. And it's really about channeling like channeling like this high energy towards like your karmic success. um and so like Libra, so the extreme of Libra, right? Of Libra and Aries, the extreme of Aries is like fuck any kind of like I'm doing me. I'm not gonna make I'm not gonna like like do anything for anyone, like that, like just like kind of complete like independent, not willing to make any compromises, just like I'm doing me, that's it. And the extreme of Libra is like full codependency, like I can't do anything without my partner, I need a relationship to validate me, blah blah blah. So the middle ground is, still being someone who's brave and independent, um, but someone who's, able to be vulnerable, right? Someone who's able to make these kind of like compromises in relationships, right? Now, also, there's a very powerful karmic energy at play, right? And it's really about asserting yourself in your boundaries, like in the context of relationships, right? And people with Mars conjunct North Node, um, they're meant to have this very assertive, and you talk about music. Well, Libra is Venus. That's music, right? That's art. So there is this real dynamic, kind of assertive, like, I guess, trajectory movement towards their career path. It makes, they're meant to be very driven to make that impact, to really, be like, do something different. Being an Aquarius moon, there's that humanitarian slash need to kind of be, very rebellious internally, like need for so much freedom in your life, right? So then when it comes to relationships, right, it can bring like very intense, passionate ones. And usually like it attracts partners who also share like the same drive for growth, and like it's very creative too, so it's like really like what I was saying, the best thing you're doing, I can't believe you're doing music, and usually I don't know anything about clients, but like the fact that you're doing music is the best thing possible. I would have said something like creative outlet 1,000% without knowing that. And you're meant to do music for sure, because look, um all of like when you're creating like you are, you're able to tap into this energy I was talking about earlier. In kind of this energy right here, it's kind of like this, like it can be a little bit stubborn and sticky, right? And it's just the best thing for it is to be able, and even for Capricorn energy in itself, is to be able to just it's like imagine Capricorn is rock, it's Saturn, and you're trying to liquefy it, right? And that's done through expressing the emotions in music, right? And the creative process that you get to know yourself better. um so yeah, it's really good for like being able to like manifest artistic talent and really create these um you know like or really like kind of have these creative outlets that align with who they are on a deep level, which is amazing. Yeah. um so Yeah. But like then when you just think of Mars and North Node together, it really is about just, yeah, embracing personal power, confronting fears, being very brave, stepping out of the comfort zone. And, just like it's like you're here to grow on a soul level. And that, that's requiring doing things that, yeah, that don't feel comfortable. So um yeah, that's brilliant what you're doing. Because when I talk about like the idea of the ninth house, like kind of north of the ninth house in classes, right? That's about like expanding the mind, right? And that's about so by you doing music like that, you're probably meeting people from different cultures. You're meeting people, interesting artists, who have these worldviews that are, not like just, artists are very, very interesting people. So you get to meet them um and kind of expand your mind through these types of connections. But it's like I said, it's very relational, and very like, so there'll be lots of karmic relationships, and there might be a tendency to like, so like really, like as I said before, like I know this can be said for anything, but especially on a karmic level, like you don't have to worry about anything. It's all about the inner work. The inner work like everything with love life comes alive when you tackle, the Venus square nodes. So when I think about everything I said, I'm like, okay, the South node would be like being like, so you are meant, with the 10th house North node in the whole sign, you are meant to really, really find yourself on a career level, right? On a big picture world level. But at the same time, um, to not be like to have like that balance between inner life, home life, family life, and external life, between the feminine and masculine. Um, and the North Node Libra people, sometimes it can feel like like um difficult because they're put in situations where it's like, you know, like maybe maybe like a lot of them are like with the Saturn your South node, like it's probably very, very natural for you to be driven and successful and like really going towards something. Um, it's just really important that the fact that it's music is beautiful, right? That's like the best because I think the path like Tennessee might have been something more like, I guess like business would be like today's equivalent, right? And like imagine like the person who's just like really, really, really businessy. Like think about like very corporate people, right? Do they really get to, you know, move out of that? Do they really, really get the chance to grow spiritually and so when it comes so like to heal the Mercury square, it's through that expansion of your awareness and through that mantra of I know nothing. I'm ready to learn and to be open to new information. And I think it's brilliant that you're getting this reading. You're born in 97. I love it. I love that a lot. So I don't ever say things like this, but you are meant to be doing music. I can see that clearly. So another reason why is because you have a ton of first house energy, and first house is about self-expression. Your sun's there, and your sun and ascendant are exactly conjunct, which means that the moment you were born, the sun was rising exactly to the minute, right? So that creates a star. That creates someone who, who's really meant to show themselves, who's really meant to kind of like get to know themselves, and get other people to know them in this life. So a lot of artists have like moon rising, sun artists have noticed it. So, that just makes that self-expression piece so important. Now you may be curious, like, why do I have so much fucking Capricorn? You've got Venus, Pallas, we go by just by planets, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Ascendant, right? Um, Neptune, Jupiter, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then plus Pallas and Sirius, that's 8 that I look at, right? So in Placidus, right? Venus, Mercury would be in the 12th. Um, whole sign the first. Now you also have another reason, like I told you, why you're meant to be an artist is because you have a natal Mercury retrograde. So this is around like 15% of the population or so have this, and what it means, right? So like when Mercury goes retrograde, it's not all the time, right? It's semi rare. I mean, happens a few times a year, right? So during those times, it makes it for most people more confusing. Um, but for you, actually way better, um, for Mercury during Mercury retrograde for you to get things done. They say like don't start things, but for you, it's for when you have it natally, it's actually good. So yeah, So when you have Mercury retrograde, it's very interesting because it is square your node. So it means that in past life you either overspoke, underspoke, like something with the thinking was in its square your node. So it's very clear to me that with your Saturn and Aries that there was probably over communication of things that didn't really fucking matter. You know what I mean? Um, so there really is this deep search for meaning in this lifetime, and you would have had like a early family or karmic kind of situation as you came up in this world that was meant to activate a lot of this, right? So um so one of the things that's interesting though is that the karmic past is very assertive, but it's like you're the only person that can hold yourself back. So when you have all that Capricorn, sometimes it can be very self-limiting. Um, right? Like it's not necessarily easy to have that much Cap. Um, it's a sign that I think highly of, right? I'm not saying that it's a bad sign. There's not really a sign that I think is a bad sign. Um, but yeah, like having a lot of Capricorn it's something, it is very Saturnian, and it is, it's showing that past life energy. So, when we talk about the 12th house Venus and okay, let's stay on the Mercury retrograde. So it's really about like being very, very like the people you hang out with, right? Like as a Mercury retrograde growing up, you like a lot of people with Mercury retrograde sometimes it's your Chiron in Scorpio. Okay, never mind. But yeah, still, and you have Mercury square Saturn. Yeah, there you go. That's what I was looking for. So, um, it's very likely. I wouldn't be surprised if you were someone who had like a different learning style because Mercury retrograde, it's very right brain, right? So it's like more like they can be super like a lot of the musicians have like the best musicians have Mercury retrograde natally, right? A lot of them do, even though it's because like the mind is better for like more abstract stuff. It doesn't mean the mind cannot be good with um you know in other ways, right? But the fact that you have a square with Saturn is interesting because that usually indicates that someone early on, or could have it could have just been like the situation like didn't necessarily didn't necessarily, I guess, work well with it gave you a feeling of kind of like maybe you were shamed, I would say, and made to feel less than, or like somehow like that your way of thinking or seeing the world was off. And a lot of times people with Mercury square Saturn end up being kind of shy, right? Now, I want to tell you that when you have this much Capricorn in your chart, the first 29 and a half years until your Saturn return are, are never easy. But that's the point, right? What's really powerful about your chart is that you're gonna have your Saturn return during the great like this like the most unreal time of all of our lifetimes in astrology, when Saturn and Neptune are together. So that's just special, and the fact that's gonna, yeah, I think that in 2026 you will feel like you will take on some, like you will find even more past life talents that you like you'll something's gonna come up. I feel like it's crazy, like really good, especially the more you get into your spirituality. But yeah, so Mercury square Saturn can bring pessimism, worry. It can make someone like kind of like there can be sadness, loneliness, like stuff like that, right? And just like shyness, and like it can make someone like kind of like second guess themselves around communication, so they have to like work really, really hard on it. And sometimes they're really hard on themselves. They're paying like too much attention to like the minute little details, and it can make make it difficult to like make friends and early on, right? And kind of step out of the comfort zone. Fear, a lot of times, like fear of being judged, and then like it can affect one's confidence, and yeah, it can just lead to like negative thinking and isolation, right? So, and also, like Saturn and Mercury, like that is, like depression, right? Like when I say that, I'm saying that it creates the potential. My opinion on depression is that um I don't think depression is not real, obviously, but I think that we disempower ourselves a lot when we say I'm depressed, you know? Um because I think that when we make those types of statements, I think it puts us in situations where we just, we just say, oh, I'm depressed, and then you just kind of start to identify with the depression when, maybe instead one could just be like, I feel depressed right now, but I'm open to seeing, how I feel later. I don't know. But I understand, like I've been in a very, very horrible mental health places. But yeah, so um, you know, with this one, it's just really important to um, do this work. And this is very based in your karma, right? Because this is square the nodes and Saturn. So it's like, replacing the negative thoughts and words with positive ones. So I think that if you don't already, you should use mantras, um, like repeating very positive mantras before sleep. That would be the best thing you can do. And affirmations. So yeah, but it's really about reprogramming the mind. And the best thing is like you can imagine yourself in different past lives. Just imagine yourself like this is what I do when I'm like kind of like having trouble. I tell my or I have like an issue. I tell myself, Jesse, like imagine in a past life you had this exact same struggle and you failed. And imagine now you're in this exact same situation and you have the chance to not make the same mistake. And it's just such a game changer. But the fact that you see that, that because you have Saturn and the nodes together, they both square Venus and Mercury, and that's showing why this energy, everything I just talked about there, it's mimicking your karma perfectly. You see how cool it is? I mean, even if it's difficult, it's mimicking your karma. Um, so also another way I know you're an artist is because your nodes are trine, um, slash sextile, um, Uranus and Neptune. So you have a lot of this really creative energy from different past lives that you're like this like ability to be very original and just kind of not give a shit what other people think, and also to be very spiritual and very, very kind of like etheric. So yeah. So that's the thing. So Mercury retrograde, um, creative outlets. So the fact that you're doing music is just like the best thing. You really am proud of you. Genuinely, like that's fucking incredible. Um, so then with Venus square Saturn, so this is one of the tougher ones in astrology. Um, it makes it really hard, especially Capricorn can be a sign that can be linked with like depression, like I said, right? With like sadness, melancholy. Um, so it just makes it so someone has to work extra hard to kind of have fun and to like have self-love and to create. But the thing about Capricorn though is that Capricorn is the hardest working zodiac sign. And that like the thing I told you about the first, set 29 and a half years, like the reasons Capricorn is associated with success is because like they have to work, they have so many pushbacks, right? Like just in the first 29 and a half years, and then they have their Saturn return, and then it's like they stay with that hard working determined energy minus the bullshit, right? And that's why like they just, it's just like so associated with success because like it's like 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, and then 4 steps forward, 3 steps back, and then like, God damn it, like fuck, and then like, why does the universe keep fucking with me? And and Capricorns also they usually have some circumstance in their life where they have to really grow up fast. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so like the Venus, Saturn also like in like with the energy. So it definitely like, especially as Aquarius moon, there could be like some very like misunderstood energy. So, being able to have like friends that, really love you for you and get you for you, it's like better to have those friends because like, with the Chiron there, um, there could be, wounding like from early on, um, related to friends, related to wanting to be accepted and maybe having had issues, right? So, a lot of people with Venus square Saturn, will find it difficult because I told you earlier about like how there's like that need. But like, okay, trust me, like with your love life stuff, your North Node's in Libra. You are, if you're gonna be fine. Like you're meant to be in relationships, but Venus square Saturn is known for making relationships delayed until like after the Saturn return or after Saturn return. Not saying all relationships, but the important ones. And a lot of times it's the karmic lesson around self-love is needed so much, and the universe will only allow the relationships to come when that level is reached. And it's very fated, right? So, also Venus, rules money. So Venus square Saturn can, have that same effect with money where it can just be annoying setbacks, right? But there's other factors, and because you have so much Capricorn, you're just a boss in that realm. So yeah. Um but yeah, I think like the fact that you've already moved into your North Node um in the music sense is like so huge that I don't know. I would just say like if you've had like an annoying pattern where it's like, what the fuck, universe? Like, trust me, I've done a million readings. Um People who have this like it's something you signed up for, and it is what it is, and everything in a Capricorn, a Saturnian, Capricorn, everything in their life gets better with age, even how they look. Like I've seen so many Saturns, Saturnians, like people tons of Capricorn or Saturn aspects, who especially, and yeah, Venus is also how you look. So like like they actually look more physically attractive, physically healthy, all that stuff, their aura, all that when they're after in their 30s than their 20s. It's not uncommon. Um, but yeah, just lots of frustration. But it's important not to lose hope because like Saturn, delays things but never denies things, right? And if you do make that effort to grow, I'm not saying that it will only be like it could come earlier. It's just a lot of times that's how it goes down. So, Yeah, just lots of challenges, around self-confidence and relationships and finances, right? Um, and also it can make one like it can kind of bring fear into the domain of love, excuse me. And a lot of times there's this feeling, this karmic feeling of like, and maybe it comes from like heartbreaks in past lives, or like restricting oneself from authentic relationships because of some type of fear. Um, and people don't, yeah, they don't feel like worthy of love, and just get lots of sorrow from relationships in the first part of life. Um, but it's all about learning, right? It's all about learning. It's all about the karma. So if someone, has, even though Aries is independent as the South Node, just imagine like, your North Node's in Libra, so you're trying to move towards having very, very balanced relationships where you're able to compromise and you're able to look at yourself and your involvement in different relationships, and learn from them. Like there's two people in relationships, right? There's people who when things go wrong, there's people who, regardless of anything, they look at their role in it and they take responsibility, and then there's people who, push blame. So it's very, very important to, you um so yeah, like if your life in any way feels like it's kind of slow, or like you're being held back by the universe, just know that you are gonna fucking kill it. This is such a powerful chart. And go watch all my readings and see how often I say that. You're meant to feel this energy because your South Node in Aries you have a karmic tendency to be able to just go, 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 and it's fast, 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 fast. So now, um, you know, uh, it's kind of like a karmic holdup, I guess. Um, so, but yeah, like partnerships themselves, like, are gonna teach you so many lessons in this lifetime. Like, so that's why I'm saying don't worry about it, right? Because like you're here to learn lessons in love, and one of those lessons is being happy alone. And it's almost like this acceptance. I had to go through it, right? Where it was almost like the second I told the universe, like, okay, I give up, I'm just gonna be single. Like, I'm not gonna try to look for anyone. Then I found my girlfriend, or we found each other. And she did the exact same thing. It was like didn't know each other. We both gave up completely, and and then we met. So it's really like that. That I think is you know, I think it's a lot of people I've talked to. When you don't need something, but it's just like more of like a good extra, I guess, of a life that's already fulfilling. I think on an energetic level, it does great things, because then, you know, you're like, I'm good. I'm good regardless. So yeah, there can be a blockage there. So yeah, the more it's about like being like pushing yourself to like create, to be playful. Um, there's just that kind of gloomy Saturn energy. It's very heavy. So like pushing yourself to laugh, right? To not overanalyze. Venus is about color. Saturn is very black and white. So, it's a karmic blockage, essentially, is what I'm saying. But, with hard work, that's what Saturn asks. So, for therapy, or for things like this, that increase your awareness for day-to-day stuff, right? And, this is an exact square. exactly 90 degrees. So when we talk, so this is why I'm spending so much time on it. So self-worth, right? This is the core of it, as I said. Um, so it's just once again like self-esteem, self-worth, um, self-image, like just yeah. Um, I'm trying to think what else I can say. Most people with this, like because of like the lack of stability in relationships early on, they can like kind of run away from relationships and be like loners and just not even want to try it. A lot of times they come from like, homes where they didn't have much support. There can be like abandonment issues. There can be like a lot of fear of like a rejection or abandonment, right? Um, and a lot of times also the parents didn't give, like a very good example of what a loving relationship looks like. Um, and a lot of times also there's like that energy because it's fourth house, maybe the family, sometimes I'm not gonna make that claim, but like sometimes with something like this, I would say like maybe like affection wasn't really shown much, like warmth towards you. So yeah, like it's really just like important, yeah, sense of humor, like connect, like the most important thing I could see is connecting with your inner child. Um and just yeah, just learning to even the hardships of life, just learning like, all this stuff. Like you're gonna look back on this in a few years and you're gonna be like, wow, I was right. And um, you know, just being able to have a sense of humor about these things is it's such a high energy. But overall you want commitment. I mean, Venus in Capricorn is here for commitment, doesn't want to muck around. But like a lot of times people they'll be single for long periods of time. So a lot, and yeah, like I said, like the best relationships come usually after the Saturn return delays them. Yeah, it's all Saturn, yeah, all about experience and trial and error. And sometimes people with this can be like attracted to the wrong type of partners, and it's all projection, right? So you know, of how you see yourself. So yeah, it's really important not to like rush into relationships. There can be so much to this. Like I could say so much stuff. Like there can be like sometimes abuse, abusive relationships, um, relationships that get in the way of your career development, and also it can be like extremely high standards, right? Because Capricorn, Venus, right? It wants to build really really strong foundations to a relationship. Um, and it it just I guess it can be hard to satisfy it, this placement in general. It's really really picky. So it's just like about understanding like no one's perfect. And there's always going to be people who have things, and it's just understanding like what flaws, and that's part of this energy, right? Part of this Libra energy is um it's being able to compromise, and and also just like working a ton on communication. Hmm. A lot of times with the Capricorn Venus, they're attracted to older partners too, more mature partners, older ones usually. But what can happen is sometimes that they can end up with people who have like completely different value systems, and there can be like lots of like kind of philosophical friction. Um, so it's really, really important to, to understand that there is a lot of good about this, right? Because as it becomes as this um, aspect becomes an asset, Venus and Saturn in love astrology is being able to be very committed, right, in relationships and have very strong long-term relationships. But once again, it's just all about fixing things at the core. It makes very committed, loyal, very loyal, right? So yeah, and also I would say like it could be a little bit challenging to tap into one's femininity with this. So that's another thing, is like doing things to make yourself, feel pretty and feel, you know, um, feel in your feminine vibe, because Capricorn is like it is an earth sign, but it's a sign, it's Cancer is the feminine, and Capricorn is like the metaphorical father, right? So you're also trying to become your own metaphorical father in this lifetime. And one other thing about the Libra, one of the things to watch out for is, like even though Capricorn is a very decisive energy, Mars and Libra are infamously indecisive, and sometimes they have issues with boundaries. So, um, boundaries and saying no, you know, like not wanting to like disrupt, um, like not wanting, like for example, like not like people pleasing, stuff like that. So it's really important to have like a strong set of values. Um, so yeah, so the Capricorn and Aquarius kind of combo, um, it clashes because Capricorn is very traditional. Um, you do have it conjunct Neptune though, so that's huge, and Jupiter. So yes, you're a Capricorn, but the fact that it's conjunct Neptune, it makes you kind of like a Capricorn slash Pisces. And the fact that it's conjunct Jupiter adds like some Sagittarius to that, right? These conjunctions are very powerful. Most of my Capricorn clients um were born with their sun conjunct Neptune, right? Because Neptune is about spirituality. It's about, art, imagination, dreaminess. So another reason why, you being an artist is not surprising. And then also Jupiter conjunct the sun makes someone like very a lot it makes someone like, so the stuff about like being pessimistic, like yeah, maybe that exists, but the fact that Jupiter is there, it adds a lot of optimism and expansion and perspective. So without the Jupiter, you might be a lot more doom and gloom Capricorn than you actually are. So so yeah, I guess like with that said, it isn't just like the tip, like just like the bare like Capricorn Aquarius, but still, even with the conjunctions, there's a part of you have to balance both parts, right? There's a part that wants, this to really, really be doing something, really, really driven energy that's more traditional. Work hard, all that, really on top of its goals, and wanting to really make a contribution to the world. Well, actually, that's how they can kind of come together, because both of those signs like really want to make a contribution to the world. But the Capricorn, well, like the Aquarius is like very humanitarian. Um, the Capricorn, the fact that it's with Neptune would actually kind of like also just be like, yeah, through the arts, and Jupiter is like, makes you very philosophical and all that stuff. But yeah, Aquarius moons, like in relationships, for example, they need freedom. They can't be like engulfed by a relationship, which is also your South Node in Esme, where's your twin? Your South Node, right? Um, in Aries. So it's very, very important to not feel like you are I mean, there's no way you can be in a relationship where you feel kind of like that person's trying to own you and like cage you in. You'll be out in a second. But it's like, how do you balance out, the more controlled, sometimes like kind of mechanic, like very not, I mean, I don't think you're like, I think that the Neptune energy really changes everything. But like, just this, you understand your Capricorn side, you understand, your Aquarius side. It's air versus earth. It's this solid, more grounded, consistent part versus this part that, Aquarius, it's fixed air. So it can be consistent. Um, but ultimately, like it does not want to feel like it wants, like it can lose its individuality. So when it comes to relationships with the Venus, there, um, I mean, you're extra Capra, you're so Saturnian. You have like one of the most Saturnian charts ever, because not only are all your, most of your planets in Capricorn, the Saturn sign, but you have two of them square Saturn, and Saturn on your south node, your karmic past. So it's like you are like 10 out of 10, which means that your Saturn return is going to be life change. Like, and don't have expectations, like, but like, your life after that, like, it's almost like I always tell people with that, like, there's your life before and your life after, and the energy will just feel so lighter. But maybe, but sometimes, it's kind of like a test. Like, everyone's Saturn return is different. So I don't like telling people like to have expectations, because maybe you have a shitty Saturn return, you know? Like, you always have to work hard with Saturn. Um, but like I always say, like, to, the importance of like letting go of like shame and um yeah, like letting go of shame and letting go of any kind of negative emotions. Um, like that happened the first 30 years, because that was meant to happen for you to grow. Okay, so the moon is on aspect, well, it's trying Chiron. So yeah, so you are a very gifted healer. You're naturally someone who has these, natural gifts of being able to put people at ease. I imagine that comes out through your music. And I imagine that your music and your art has like a lot of, freedom, and it's very individualistic, right? It's very like, it's you. I guarantee you, I would be very surprised if you were as an art. But that's the thing, is that Capricorn sometimes can be like Aquarius is the rebel. It's the one who's different. And then Capricorn sometimes is the one that, yeah, but the conjunction with Neptune changes it. But still, like, it's this kind of balance between like trying to, sometimes Capricorn like can really want to fit in, because it can be very much about like success. So it's really how you define success. And if that's like, about spirit, metaphysical, I mean, we all have egos, right? On some level. But sometimes Capricorn energy can care too much about others' opinions. Not always. So yeah. Um, but yeah, what's really important is like, so your part of fortune is exactly with your moon. So it's saying that your flow, your highest state, is when you're able to really, really be free. And also, second house is about feeling grounded. It's about your morals. It's about your internal resources. Um, so like it's about self-sufficiency, right? So that's like how, you are at your best, right? A second house moon, on some level craves stability, right? Like they have an emotional need for stability, right? Um, and I always call it like the constitution of you, like having like, and that's also really important for the Mars and Libra because of the potential indecisiveness. It's like the idea of like, if you had like a constitution, a set of morals and values, and you made all your decisions based off of that, right? And the fact that it's Uranus and Aquarius is that it's not meant to be normal. It's meant to be very, very true to you as a human being, as a soul, as a individual, as your yeah. So yeah, and these are the very things that help remove you from any of these self-limiting beliefs or like this like stuff that you might be holding on to from past lives, right? So yeah. So yeah, and then like I think what's cool about your Mercury retrograde in that sign Capricorn is that Mercury Capricorn is like it is very logical and they are usually quite good with, let's say, like the kind of intelligence needed for school. So it does, and even like as a Capricorn Neptune conjunction, it's like this real blend of like my favorite artist, Armin van Buuren, is a Capricorn Pisces. And I just think it's like you have like the imagination of Pisces mixed with like the execution of Capricorn, right? So it's just awesome, like just a hardworking ability. The thing I love the most about Capricorn is that like they can literally like set their minds to something and just like follow through. Like they can just like follow through for the longest term. It's so gangster. So as a Cap rising, so obviously Saturn rules your chart, from the fourth or third in Placidus, and or would be the second. Hmm. I want to pull this up in Placidus. Actually, no, I'm not gonna do that. Actually, I am. Stop share. Okay, yeah. So in Placidus, it's in the third. Okay, but yeah. So like, I also feel like um, you could have definitely been like almost like growing up like really felt like you had to defend your beliefs and defend like what like what like your worldview and maybe like there's like some pain around that, um like feeling like rejected for your beliefs, right? um so yeah, but like the Aquarius moon, like there you have this need to think outside the box, to be outside the box, to not be just like everyone else. And I feel like the Chiron and Scorpio, it can bring like sometimes I've seen that like being related to like um trauma sexually. Sometimes it's like trauma that's like perinatal, right? Like really tough like pregnancy, something very, very young years like that. Also, like it just brings like usually a lot of pain in intimate relationships, but then that person is like really meant to be someone who, um, you know, like delves into like the esoteric, the mysteries of life, psychology, anything from death, sexuality, all that stuff to learn to like really probing into the deeper matters of life. And they kind of become their own spiritual healer, and then they can help others in that way too. So yeah, Jupiter in the first house gives like a larger than life presence and someone who can really like inspire. It's great for an artist, right? For any kind of public figure, like someone who can really like express themselves well. And Jupiter Capricorns, that's very good for money and just very good for like someone who really wants that professional status, that recognition. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes there can be like an over obsession potentially with that thing I talked about. The Neptune in the first house is so interesting because it's like you want to take your dream world, which can be your music, right, and implant it into your everyday life, right? But also there can be like a lack of boundaries, like where you feel like there's a lack of boundaries between yourself and others, and sometimes you can feel like people are projecting onto you a lot, like so it's really important to have that firm feeling of I know who I am, to not allow I have like these allergies. To not allow like someone else's opinion of you to seep into your opinion of yourself. And so it's really important to like find something like music, that helps you kind of clarify who you are. Because there can be, identity issues like stuff like that. But yeah, I love Neptune first house. Just very mystical people. So in Platypus, your moon's in the first, and that's common for artists. Um, but I think like, I'm gonna go back to whole signs, but it's just like really important to feel like you're like moving forward in life, Um, and you can be very so having an air moon is very interesting, right? Because it can make it so the person like doesn't it's not like they don't have emotions, right? Um, but mm, you lack water, right? You don't have water in your chart, um, which is like, related to intuition, compassion. It's not like, but you have Neptune on your sun, so that kind of saves it actually. Yeah, that does that. But regardless, right? Still not having any water plants. I mean, you have Mercury on your sun or Neptune on your sun really, 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 really helps. But regardless, that one second, I'm switching it back. Have like plus having an Aquarius moon. Sometimes Aquarius moons, it's so interesting. Like they can care so much about like people they don't know or about like not people. That's the wrong way. Like causes, like they really, really care about causes. Like things related to like humanitarianism or like something they really, really care about. Um, but then they sometimes like can be quite aloof emotionally. It's because air moons, like I always say, like the same thing can happen to Aquarius and a Cancer moon, and I think like Aquarius moon would feel like maybe the Cancer moon like cries about it, and maybe the Aquarius moon doesn't like take it in emotionally until like 7 months later, right? It's just it's just an example I give. It's not always like that, and obviously like based on the emotional work you do, that's how. But it's just like air moons have like they tend to prefer logic over emotions. So it's really important for them to not intellectualize emotions and for them to, do things to get in touch with their emotions. Um, so yeah. But it makes, Aquarius moons are great leaders because they're not ruled by emotion. They're not emotionally led. So logic, so like let's say like in war, for example, as a commander, you'd want an Aquarius moon because, one, there's like that very social aspect for, doing it for the cause. Um, and two, just a leader in general, right? Um, they really are able to really like stay cool, like cool as a cucumber and make decisions, that are not emotionally led. But some people like might think like, oh, they're not emotional, they don't care about me. And I have a lot of Aquarius in my chart too, so I get it. Um, it can be quite annoying, like when, because like Aquarius moon just needs a lot of space and a lot of freedom, and they hate feeling boxed in. So if that happens, sometimes they need breaks from people, in situations. So yeah. Let me see here. Wait, why is it showing this? What is happening? Hold on, I think I know what I did. Oh no 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 no. Yeah, I switched it to heliocentric. Okay. Yeah. So I always say with Capricorn, like it's about undoing like liquefying stuck emotional patterns from past lives, and like just balancing the feminine and the masculine. So yeah, so ascendant in Capricorn, they can sometimes have like come off to others as like, kind of cold. I know a lot of models that are cap risings, and I always guess their risings in Scorpio because the midheaven is Scorpio. And yeah, like it's just like a very like it's just it's like they're very focused, on they're very good at getting like the steps done, like hardworking. They're about their money, they're about their hustle, um and they're very responsible, and they have a face of responsibility. They have to usually like growing up they had to like take on extra responsibilities. um so like a lot of times like when they're um you know like from a young age they might be like hanging out with older people or just feel more of a natural connection with older people and just be like, yeah, like more mature than other people their age, I guess you could say. um yeah, and they can be a little bit quiet, but like yeah, they have this seriousness to them. I always say like if there's two people, four people playing for the job, they're all exactly the same in terms of like, qualifications. Boss has to make the change, and one of them is cap rising. The cap rising is getting the job because they just, will come off as responsible, and they are, and authoritative, right? Very authoritative. boss energy, right? But once again, sometimes they can be a little bit too serious and gloomy. So they need to like, so like I think with partnership and just friends in general, it's really, important to have people who, where you're able to laugh, where you're able to just say whatever, screw it. And then yeah, let's see. So Pluto in the 12th is a really amazing spiritual placement. The way I think about it is, there's just like a deep, deep spiritual mission for you in this lifetime. And you're meant to separate from Saturn, from the material world, and dive. It's like taking like that deep dive into the Neptunian, the endless ocean of Neptune, right? Like this idea of oneness. That's the goal. But it can be very hard because things, feel solid. They feel, you know what I mean? So they feel safe. So it's like, how does one move away from, like, allow themselves to just let go? And then the fact that you have Chiron on the midheaven, it means, in the 11th, it's like, it really speaks to you as a healer. Like you could be someone who has, you know, career as a healer in some way, maybe you have some special talents. And I know that music can be considered healing, but I would usually refer to that as like your North Node and just like Venus energy, right? Um, so yeah. Um, mm, Uranus and the moon, the second is very interesting because I talked about money, but this is the thing. Um, it's really important to see money as a waterfall and to kind of go with the flow of money, like a waterfall, sometimes there's more water, right? Sometimes there's more, you know, coming out than others. So it's about really adapting to that and knowing that Uranus in a second, it can actually push someone to be like almost like minimalist because they can just like have like really, really like weird like just like ups and downs financially where there's like a just really random financial life where they just and usually they don't really like the kind of financial system. They're more, bohemian a lot of the times and kind of free spirited when it comes to that kind of stuff. But then you're Capricorn, so Capricorn is like kind of pushing a lot of that away. But the moon, the second, is interesting, right? Because I already spoke about that a little bit. Um, but yeah, it can also like the way I see it is that when you attach yourself to spiritual values, you are able to push away some of the up and down effects that can have on your emotions. And like if one second house moon person is too attached to, their finances and like too obsessed with that, um, they can really experience some difficulties in that area of life. But if they're able to just say, fuck it is what it is, um, that is the best, simply put. And good things happen. So yeah, it really is. There's so much in your chart. You get the theme. Like it's just like there's so much about being able to just let go. More with love. So, like the Venus in Capricorn, it's like, found like when you're building a building, it's like you want a solid foundation. That's how it is for relationships. Like reliability and love go hand in hand. You don't want someone who's, mucking around. But then your Juno is in Aries. So, that speaks to like um wanting someone who's very independent, someone who's very, you know, yeah, like, as an Aquarius moon, you would want to be with someone who who has their own life, someone who is assertive, someone who is not a pushover, someone who values their own alone time. Or actually, I take back that last thing I just said. Someone who values their own independence and their own personhood, right? Because like, in your Libra North Node journey, it's very important for you to have someone that can give you what you need, right? If it's someone who's just like super codependent, that's not going to work. And your Aquarius moon craves that freedom. It needs it. It doesn't crave it, it needs it. Like you cannot, I say it again, you cannot feel like, because like I do composite charts, compatibility readings, and there's a chart that's made between two people. So every time there's an energy that exists when you're with someone, right? In the same, when you're with them in their energy field. So people can lose their own energies, their own birth charts to that. So besides that, Vesta and Aquarius, like that's very interesting because you're able to work very well in teams and towards, for causes that you really believe in. It could even be like you're very inventive, you're very creative, and you can have very like creative, like money making schemes as well. Um, Ceres is in Palace are both in Cap. So, it just speaks to like, loving, feeling nurtured by, you know, the actions that like you nurture people by the little things that you're willing to do, go out of your way to do, right? The sacrifices that you're willing to make, um, more tangible, right? And you and loyalty, right? And then that's kind of what you're able to give and what you want to receive. So yeah, and then Palace, that just gives like a very wise ability to, have this like really, 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 really like almost chess player, um, kind of like, just strategic, um, intelligence around your career goals, and yeah, it's just good logical intelligence. And then if we um if we think about like the 12th house, Mercury and Venus, that is about, how the best way for you to handle these energies, right? Because there can be like very, very karmic love, like the fact that your South Node is square Venus means that there's karmic relationships, especially like in the first part of your life, that are very difficult and that are not meant to be easy. And that you're meant to, to go into them. Um, like it's like imagine like checks and balances, right? Like energy, like the energy is supposed to be even. And in some of these relationships, the energy, like maybe one person screwed the other person over in a past life, who knows? So it's like there's lots of those relationships. But the thing with the 12th house is that, one, it's like that spiritual relationship with yourself. That's the major importance. Two, it's service. So if you're of service in your life, um, that's the way around, that's the way to kind of beat some of these like more difficult parts of it, right? Um, yeah, definitely like misunderstood energy I sense. but also this very large aura, massive aura that maybe intimidates people. Um, yeah, you know, you are meant, like I said, to have this assertiveness towards your career and this action towards your career as a creator. So I'm very happy about that. And, you know, Vertex and Virgo, like I think of that as someone who's meant to really, really be of service in their life and help out, you know, help out the world. And obviously that can take many different forms, right? And, you know, it'd be in the eighth. It's supposed to be only up up until the eighth. So, you know, it's just like through these really intense romantic experiences, usually romantic, that you learn the most. Um, just like these transformational experiences that with, you know, your Pluto on the 12th maybe happen in like your spiritual, like kind of maybe even in your dreams, right? Um, maybe in your kind of your imagination, you know, like, or, you know, in the invisible realms, right? So, yeah, also your seventh house ruled by the moon and being, you know, Cancer. I think that just like speaks to like how maybe like the fact that you have no water. So the fact that you have no water, right? That can make it hard. Like it could be like sometimes opposites attract. So maybe someone who has some Mars in their chart could be good for you, but like you know, you might be interested in like Cancer energy. Um, so like having like a deep emotional connection. And you know, also not having any fire, right? That is interesting because you're so you don't have any water, but you have Neptune on your sun, and you don't have any fire, but you have your South Node in Aries, and I see that a lot, and that makes me think that you've passed the fire like test. um, so yeah, you may have passed the fire test. And maybe it's something, it's an element that you know, in your past lives, because it's your South Node that you've kind of defeated. Um, so let's see here for a second. Black Moon Lilith and Leo. Um, so yeah, Black Moon Lilith and Leo. I think like that's kind of like you at your worst, and I think that that can be just like it's like you at your lowest potential, right? And I think that has to do with giving and taking, and like potential for being like a little bit selfish. I'm not saying you have that. I'm just saying it's you at your lowest. We all have this. It's not a planet. It's a hypothetical point. So, like always think about like the giving and the taking, like energetically. Sometimes people with with Black Lilith and Leo, it's like, you know, they think they're giving, but really they're taking. So it's really about like having that good, you know, ratio of giving and taking. And in this eighth, yeah, I think like that's it could bring, you know, reveal some darkness around kind of you know, sexuality or the kind of darker aspects of the eighth house, you know, birth, death, even debt, you know, like something like you know, with greed potentially. Like, there's so many potentials, right? Um, it can be so many things, right? But I think it could relate to like relationships, and if there is like a kind of person or a tendency that you might be taking on, and just how that can be a projection. So yeah, just like really about love, you know, And also with your music, I think like if it can have like a feeling and a real depth to it, and you're midheaven in Scorpio, so as a public figure, you're gonna come off as very like Scorpionic and mysterious and intriguing. And with Neptune in your first house, you're gonna be very, very I think like yeah, like very mysterious and hard to read. And I think the more that your art can dive into like this like kind of ethereal like realm, I think that that's like amazing, because like if you can like create from your intuition, so just through meditating and getting deep, you can just have like messages come to you. Yeah, and of course Saturn the fourth. Usually, yeah, but yeah, usually just like not having like a lot of support early on in life, but having to kind of do it for yourself, and then through hard work, wanting to like kind of build like a solid base for yourself, and like if you have a family, or if you have a future or current family, so okay, let's pull these up. Yeah, so literally Sappho's on your sun, so you could be like literally a poet. And Eros, so on your ascendant. So yeah, like literally that's like poetry, and just it is also kind of erotic, and usually like some very sensual, but like that's very interesting. I would have said that regardless of whether I knew that you are an artist. So also the fact that part of fortunes with the moon is really favorable for connections with women, and the fact that your moon has no hard aspect. um I don't like to say like you have a good relationship with your mom, a bad relationship with dad. Like I'm not saying that. But usually like that is a good sign for that. Um, so you're really able, like when your self-esteem is strong, you're really able to like attract wealth and happiness, right? But it's all about the self-esteem. That's the battle, right? And especially when it's like with relationships with women, there's a lot of favor there. But yeah, so it's really, really all about like being at peace with your emotions, and just this themes that I've talked about over and over. So then you have Lilith, the asteroid on your Mars. So that is like when I say feminist, I mean just like the female in the patriarchal world. You don't fuck with her, like the strong woman, and it's a witch asteroid. You have that around your Mars, so that's activating you as like a witch. Whether it's like you take that for what you want, for what you want it to be. Um, so what's this? Angel in midheaven, that just gives you like, that's a really good thing for an artist, because it gives like a very angelic um vibe to you, but it's like mixed with Scorpio and angelic, like on social media, like to the public, right? Also, Aquarius and Pluto, like I could see that being some kind of like trauma, like physical trauma. Lust activated too. That's another of like the sexy ones, like very sensual, very sexual energy. Let me see if I can find anything about this. Probably not, but so yeah, super interesting reading. So let's see, Castor. Oh, okay, so it's very good for fame. Ariana Grande has it there, and her descendant Megan Fox. So, yeah, it's a good one. And then Pollock. Yeah, similar. Um, lots of like prosperity and like the Middle Ages also. All right, so that's about it. So last thing, um, most people what they do is that they get this reading in the follow-up, which I think you did. Let me just check. And also thank you for so much for your patience. Yours for some reason, like it was like the last one I did, not for any like reasons. Like I just really wanted to be in a good flow for some reason to do yours. So thank you so much for being patient. I really appreciate it. And you have the follow-up. So my email is jesseinnocentastrology@gmail.com. Most people watch this multiple times, take notes, all that. Nearly everyone gets the follow-up plus the current astrology reading. So that is where we go over all your transits, like the year ahead. It's like the astrological weather. Like you have your birth chart. This you can you can never get this done again. It never changes, right? You could have another astrologer do it. But for me at least, like this is what I offer for the birth chart. But then the current astrology, it's always changing, right? So I go over every predictive tool. Like most astrologers, they'll have like a different reading for like each one. Like I'll use every single one in that one reading. So instead of like the 1 hour follow-up, it becomes a 3 hour. First hour's follow-up. We go over just the natal chart, comparing your lived experience with what I said today, and then hours 2 and 3 is the current astrology. So, and it's not a long wait like this. I mean, maybe I have I have so many booked now that maybe it's like a month because I have my vacation coming up finally. Um, but yeah, just let me know if you want to do that. I'll give you a $60 discount. So usually it's 350. It would go down to 290. So let me know and thank you so much. Ciao.